People that know me well know that I don't have a lot of friends, but I got a lot of weird, like, friend groups. You know what I mean? Like sports friends, movie friends, old high school friends. Can you tell which one is me? I just blend right in. And as of the last, like, half decade or so, I've developed this new sub-friend group genre thing completely dedicated to anime, content, gaming, and general shit-talking. And it has had a profound effect on my mitochondria. My content friends are known as Han and Mike, but we call Han Neko because he thinks Jan, it looks a little bit like Jan, which is typically a girl's name, so we simply refer to him as the Japanese word for pussycat, which is honestly super based. I have developed a very close friendship to these two wonderful Puerto Ricans. We're not sending these two back. These are the good ones. I really need to work on my Trump. But we've done years of content together, building up an empire of 7,000 weebs and completely abandoning it for a laugh.
Oh, this is just too good.
But for the past half decade or so, we've kind of had this cheeky competition amongst the three of us. Who can like the coolest things? Who can recommend the most niche and outlandish things? Granted, Neko jumped out of the running pretty early on. He admitted he likes general slop as long as it isn't boring, so he left Mike and I to duke it out for best enjoyer. I would hit Mike with a classic Indonesian film, never heard of it before, Raid Redemption. Okay, super niche. Okay, then he would retort. He would say, Blood on the Tracks, Jake. Crazy Mom, manga, never heard of it. Okay, this one was pretty good. Okay, then I had to answer back, anime indie classic, amazing, Oko's End. If you haven't seen it, you gotta see it. Then he bounced back with Onimusha. Okay, I never got to play games like this as a kid, so this was like a whole new world for me, alright? This is where I had to start bringing out the big guns. Ari Aster's Hereditary. Yes. Thank you. Thank you, yes. What do you got? Chainsaw Man.
Jesus Christ.
I think one of the most genuine reactions I've ever had on the Anime Reaction channel is when we watched the Chainsaw Man trailer for the first time. I look like I don't want to be there, and then we start the trailer and I'm smiling like a dumbass, and then a few seconds later I start giggling like a 14-year-old schoolgirl when Denji gets his finger bitten by Makima. I had no frame of reference as to what the story was or what the character motivations were, especially if you've seen the trailer. It doesn't give you a whole lot of information, but this smile you're seeing here is a grown-ass man simply enjoying the sauce that is Chainsaw Man, without really being able to explain what he's seeing or what he's feeling. I did a thing there. I'm gonna tie back in with the video. I did a thing there. I think the most amazing thing about sharing your favorite art with your friends is the in-depth conversation that can take place to only further your appreciation of said art. But I have noticed that myself and Mike and even Neko, we butt heads very often when discussing certain things. Mike loves manga. He sees it as the definitive thing. If you place the manga of Demon Slayer in front of him and you place the anime of Demon Slayer in front of him, he will undoubtedly choose the manga, which boggles my brain, because if you've seen what the anime looks like, well...
Jesus Christ.
And this is what the manga looks like. Does this make the manga obsolete? Absolutely not. And there are plenty of manga that I prefer over their anime counterparts, most notably being One Punch Man and JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, which I know blows a lot of people's minds. I think both of these series just represent serialization, and reading it is just way more fun and fast-paced, or more appropriately paced than watching it. However, I am a film guy. I went to film school. My last name is Movies. I kind of, in all aspects, have to love film. I love acting. I love writing. I love seeing cinema in full motion, whether it be film reels or fully digital. I love seeing fully realized worlds, whether they be CGI like Avatar or fully practical like Lord of the Rings. And most importantly, I love music. And because of these things, I typically gravitate towards anime over manga, which has always caused Mike to poke a bit of fun at me, saying I needed to be pampered with my music and my acting and my cinematography to enjoy my story, cause I'm just a dumb little baby without it. Since he threw that onto me, I'm gonna do a thing where I take that and we're gonna talk about it in this video and we're gonna see what we can do with it, okay? Cause he said this to me, okay? And it kind of hurted. So because of all these things that I love about movies, I of course couldn't wait to watch Chainsaw Man. And I mean that literally. I could not wait. I read the manga. It wasn't supposed to be like this, though. I was supposed to wait. The Chainsaw Man trailer came out in like July of 2021. Typically when, anime would show their trailers, it would be like 3 months before the show aired. But we watched the Chainsaw Man trailer and I waited through July to September, October, through Christmas and New Year's, and we heard nothing. So I took matters into my own hands. And to my absolute shock, Chainsaw Man was pretty good. When I began reading it, I was a bit perplexed. It felt similar to like if you took Tarantino, Nolan, and the Coen brothers and meshed them together, and coincidentally, the inspiration and influence of Chainsaw Man is deeply rooted in Western cinema, most notably being Tarantino and the Coens. Whenever I would describe Chainsaw Man to people, I would be like, oh, it's the Big Lebowski, but with superpowers. And just a side note, the opening of season 1 of Chainsaw Man doesn't have 1, or 2, or 3, but 4 references in the opening alone to Tarantino and the Coens. Let me play this clip real quick.
And because something happens to him, like the story starts to envelop and unveil.
Weird way, yeah.
Like, a lot of things start happening to the main character that he has a hard time like
understanding.
It almost sounds like a Quentin Tarantino movie more than anything, because those are very like they're not plot heavy, but stuff happens that has consequences, and also they're not funny, but the dialogue and the stuff that happens is so like coincidental sometimes and so like on the nose that it makes you laugh.
The fact that I was able to point that out before even having read Chainsaw Man, I mean, I'm a genius. I should have like a bazillion subscribers at this point. I saw these badass looking characters walking around in sleek black and white suits and pictured booming music just going in the background like crazy while I walked around with these blank expressions. It reminded me of stuff like Reservoir Dogs, Inception, Pulp Fiction, and Tenet. But after reading all of part 1 of the manga, which is like 11 volumes, I kind of felt like Chainsaw Man was missing one thing, and I think I finally know what it is. Enter Chainsaw Man the movie, Reze Arc. We finally received season 1 of Chainsaw Man a year and a half after the first trailer released, late in 2022, and I enjoyed the 12 episodes we got, but fans would have to wait 3 more years to get the next bit of content, which would be the Chainsaw Man movie. It follows up the first season and continues the story of the manga in its own little self-contained story that does have much bigger implications on the greater story at large. And if you're a keen listener, you would know that I already know what was going to happen in this movie because I have read the manga. So, the question is, did the Chainsaw Man movie meet my expectations? And to put it simply, I kind of think this is one of the best movies ever made. I'm sure you've been on Twitter seeing countless people post about how this movie is life-changing and one of the best movies ever made, but no, genuinely, actually, yeah. Remember when I said that the manga felt like it was missing something? Well, I found it. Chainsaw Man started with pen and paper, but it always belonged in the same medium that inspired it in the first place. The medium of pampering. The older I get, the more I realize that I just don't get that excited for movies anymore. And I feel like the more movies I see, the less I like per movie that I see. Like, remember when you were younger and you just liked everything that you watched, no matter how shitty it was? I kind of feel the opposite. I felt like the older I got, the less impressed I was with whatever I subjected myself to. And I would get so pissed off at all of these freaking fanboys. Dune Part 2 is the greatest movie ever freaking made. Demon Slayer is like literally the best movie of all time. Yes, literally. Sinners will cure your depression and it will end world hunger. And while I enjoyed every movie I just mentioned, I've walked out of almost everything I've watched for the past like year or two with a small hint of disappointment, completely stemming from the fact that maybe I didn't get it, I didn't understand it, or I just couldn't appreciate it as much as everyone else, which to me is like kind of frustrating. To put it simply, Chainsaw Man the movie is the first movie I've seen in about 2 years that feels special. The kind of movie you walk out of feeling different. It's that perfect crescendo, perfect pace in movie form. We open with our protagonist Denji, or Chainsaw Man, as he's continuing his journey of self-discovery and learning what it means to be fulfilled, aka getting in his boss's pants. And in this film, we get to see one of my favorite segments from the manga, and I really wish I could show you, but they are cracking down on piracy, so I'm going to take trailer footage and I'm going to take manga panels and I'm going to do my best to kind of explain this moment right here. But basically, Denji and his boss Makima go out on a date on a movie marathon. These two, they see like something like 5 or 6 movies in one day. It's a full day thing, and after every single movie they see, we get to see their reaction. Oh, this movie, it was like a drama, but it felt like it was trying to manipulate me into crying instead of earning my emotions. This was a horror movie, but I never really felt any dread. It was a comedy, but it never made me laugh. Denji comes to the realization that maybe movies just aren't for him. That's when Makima turns to him and says that she watches a lot of movies and only really likes 1 out of every 10 or so. But it's that one movie that can completely change the way you view the world. So they walk into the last movie of the day. Makima describes this as like, oh, this movie's really hard to understand. I guess they're watching like an A24 film or something. They sit down and we get to see a bit of what they're watching. An older man walks into frame, walks up to an elderly lady, and the two embrace. We don't know the emotional context or anything of this scene. It's intentionally that way, but we do see very immediately that this scene elicits an emotional response from Denji, and he begins to cry. He is of course embarrassed that Makima will see him, and so he turns to her and sees that she's actually crying too. And the crux of the scene is that Denji doesn't actually know why he's crying. It's almost as if the emotions just kind of snuck up on him. I never forgot reading this scene. It was one of my favorite moments in all of Chainsaw Man, and it's even better in the movie, and I really wish I could show you guys, but I always pondered what its purpose was, and later in part 1, you get a pretty definitive answer of what it means. It really ties the emotional through line of Denji's story together, but with this movie, I think I understand it even more. The brilliance of Chainsaw Man is the simplicity of Denji's motivation and how Fujimoto, the creator, uses the supporting characters to flesh out what Denji is searching for, and what he's searching for is intimacy. But what is intimacy to a boy who grew up homeless and is 16 years old?
Sex?
Chainsaw Man as a series is essentially about a boy who is naive due to his own inexperience, and the people around him use and abuse that inexperience like a goddamn fleshlight. That is until we come across a whole new character that is introduced in this movie known as Reze. And what makes Reze really stand out from the rest of the cast is she feels almost like a gender bend of Denji's character. She's goofy, vulgar, and I would also argue, very inexperienced and naive. Giguk Garnt from Trash Taste, I think he put it brilliantly, although slightly sounding like a boomer when he said it. I feel like if you're not Gen Z, you can't use Gen Z lingo. But he said essentially, Reze matches Denji's freak. I think that's perfect. And the chemistry between these two characters is almost immediately infectious. It's also a more appropriate relationship. The dilemma of the film in the first act is that Denji is very much in love with his boss Makima, who's like 30-something, but is slowly falling for Reze. It's a much more natural progression towards something intimate. And I say appropriate because Reze seems to be around the same age as Denji, as opposed to, being 2 decades older than him. There's a scene towards the beginning of the second act where Denji and Reze have a date. They sneak into a school that night and they go skinny dipping in a pool, and it is quite honestly one of the most well animated and well composed scenes in years that I have seen, and I do want to talk more about it, but people are also being weird. Like, I've noticed something about film discourse amongst like younger audiences. They do not like nudity, even when it's like a main theme in the story. Like, take Ghost in the Shell, where it's like very pivotal in like the story of the movie. And to any like Gen Zers or Gen Alpha that's watching this, I recommend like any movie from the 80s. Just go on Amazon, type in like 80s movies, pick like any movie, and you will see more unintentional tits and ass than you can shake a stick at. This is not unintentional. And the scene doesn't just serve the purpose of showing us that Denji is truly falling in love with this girl, but it gets us to love their relationship as well. It feels like the most natural thing that has happened in Denji's entire life. And just when it reaches its absolute peak, Reze reveals herself to quite literally be the mirror image of Denji. In the world of Chainsaw Man, we have monsters called devils, and they manifest from the fears of humans. So, for instance, there's a lot of fear of gun violence in the US, so that would pretty much mean in the world of Chainsaw Man that there would be a gun devil. And because there's such a concentrated amount of fear towards guns, the gun devil would be extremely powerful, which means in the world of Chainsaw Man, there's of course a chainsaw devil. However, it wouldn't be very powerful. Something like the chainsaw devil probably would have been more powerful in like the 70s when like Texas Chainsaw first released. And they kind of hint at that in the movie, that like the chainsaw devil used to be like that guy. But in season 1 of Chainsaw Man, the chainsaw devil is essentially this little doggy named Pochita. It's Denji's only friend, and when Denji is killed by the Yakuza, Pochita gives Denji his devil heart, turning Denji into a devil man, or Chainsaw Man. I low-key thought very early on reading this that this was kind of like a reboot of Devilman, but Chainsaw Man very much takes on a life of its own. So while Denji and Reze are on this date, she reveals herself to be, like I said, the mirror image of Denji. She is a half-human, half-devil hybrid, the Bomb Devil. And she was hired to kill Denji. This is what leads us into the second half of the movie. Like I said, first half, very character building, very slow, very methodical with certain scenes. Second half, quite possibly the most batshit crazy thing I have ever witnessed. This is where MAPPA, the studio behind the movie, really begins to flex their animation muscles, showcasing scenes that look like they must have taken like a million years to animate. That was no lie earlier when I said the entire second half of this 100-minute movie is all action. It's essentially one giant fight, and every moment it continues to ramp up the spectacle and the stakes. There must have been like 4 or 5 points throughout the second half of this movie where I threw my hands up and I was like, okay, it ain't gonna get better than this. And it always did. And while the action and animation are the main things that people are discussing online, I don't actually think it's my favorite part of the film. Kensuke Ushio is an anime composer that has worked on many projects. He's 42 years old, and I would consider him to maybe at this point be in my top 5 favorite composers ever. I'm talking like up there with John Williams, Nobuo Uematsu, and Hans Zimmer. Ushio has composed some of the greatest OSTs I have ever heard, from Devilman Crybaby to Ping Pong the Animation, and he also did a silent voice. Whenever I heard that Kensuke Ushio was going to be composing the music for Chainsaw Man, I knew that he was going to go off. But most surprisingly, I found Season 1's OST to be a bit underwhelming, but thankfully that is completely rectified here with the Chainsaw Man movie. And I wouldn't just say rectified, I think this OST is... It won't win Best OST at the Oscars, but I'm telling you, it absolutely deserves to. A lot of what I'm mentioning that I enjoyed with the Chainsaw Man movie cannot be found in the manga. From the brilliant mix of 2D and 3D animation to the performances and especially the music, I found that all of the things that I think make the movie so special might be considered pampering to someone else. And it really got me thinking, what's wrong exactly with liking an anime or movie over its original counterpart? I think the quality of adaptation can be debated for eternity, but genuinely, is it wrong to like an anime over a manga when the manga is the most definitive, most original, most pure form of what's being presented? Am I simply just a troglodyte, a mere child, for needing to be overstimulated by all the intangible things that make movies incredible? And I think that's where there's a misunderstanding. It's not a need. It's simply just a different language. a different medium entirely. You know, through all of this, I find it a little bit funny because, to a degree, I have always agreed with my friend. Movies do pamper the audience. The music, it tells you how to feel, the lights point to what's important, but that's what gives it its language. Cinema is emotion with intention, and the most crucial differentiating factor between those who pamper and those who do not are the ones that are able to make you cry without ever having to explain why. Chainsaw Man the movie is the greatest shonen film that has ever been made. A film that so subtly slides pathos to the viewer through every aspect it presents. Just listen to this music. It sounds like a love letter to the Technicolor era of cinema. Come on, it's so whimsical and playful. This movie, it wants you to have fun. It wants you to point at the screen and go, oh look, a man made out of chainsaws riding a shark into a storm. That is awesome. It also wants to tear your heart out and make you think over and over again about the first time you saw Denji and Reze sink to the bottom of the ocean together. And soon come to the realization that you are re-experiencing exactly what Denji felt when he went to the movies with Makima, watching two people embrace each other. Do they feel love? Is there some sort of resentment? Maybe you can't explain away everything you're feeling, but that's part of the point. It's not a thing that's so easily articulated, it's a feeling. It's not just words on a page, it's a reflection of who we are. This scene at the movies isn't about Denji learning how to cry, it's a meta-commentary about what happens when art stops trying to explain itself and just simply touches you on a deeper level. I didn't want to do this, but I did mention earlier about the whole, like, Denji crying in the theater. What exactly does all this mean? I think the movie has a lot to say about cinema, you know, it being a meta commentary for the audience. But what does it mean in the story of Chainsaw Man? The answer is absolutely, I think, the best moment that Tatsuki Fujimoto has written in the entire series so far, completely tying off the emotional through line of Denji's story in the last few chapters of Chainsaw Man Part 1. So I'm going to be spoiling the manga. Skip to this time code if you do not want to hear anything. In the last few chapters of Chainsaw Man, Makima reveals herself to be the Control Devil, and essentially betrays the image that Denji had made of her. Before the two fight, Denji asks Makima, in your perfect world, will bad movies still exist? Which again, if you were listening to the video, this is something that Denji doesn't really appreciate. Bad movies. At first she doesn't reply, there's a bit of a beat, but then she realizes where the conversation is going, so she replies by saying, I believe the world would be a better place if bad movies ceased to exist. This is where Chainsaw Man really got me. Denji looks to the love of his life and simply says, I guess I gotta kill you after all. And that single exchange really made the story of Chainsaw Man click for me. Denji may not be fulfilled as a character, but he's learning what it means to have balance in his life. You can't always be happy. You can't always be sad. You can't always watch good movies, because if you do, you will lose sight of what made them special in the first place. We need movies that pamper us and tell us every single little detail and hammer home exposition. Maybe manga would be better off if it pampered us. Hell, manga. Honestly, drawings, pampering. Read novels instead. Actually, you know what? No, words are pampering. You should be able to read my f***ing mind. And if you can't, zero media literacy. You know, years ago, I made a video about the first anime I had ever seen, which was Your Name. And please go watch it. It's so weird that that video is like 4 years old at this point. And I explained how enamored I was with it and how it launched me into the medium of anime and reacting to it and enjoying it and sharing it with Dude, I gotta be honest, nobody in my family watched anime until me, and I got my cousin on it. Actually, 2 cousins now. I just recently got another one on it. My sister, and we're working on my little brother, alright? He's a little stuff. He's still got that, like, stigma about it, but we're getting there. But it was all due to Your Name entirely. Honestly, over the past few years, I have found myself watching less and less of it. I feel like I've seen everything that the medium has to offer. You go to the top 20 best anime on any website and I'd seen them all. And after Attack on Titan ended, I began to question. I was like, was this actually just a phase, Mom? Like, but I can say with an absurd amount of confidence that after this Chainsaw Man movie, I mean, this is like the first movie I've seen since Your Name, anime-wise, that has just like completely launched me back into the medium. And I really want to start getting back to making videos and reacting to anime as well. And to be honest, I just had like my 28th birthday, and I realized that if I had just kept consistently making videos like I was 4 years ago, I'd probably be in a much better place. So what I'm going to do now is try. I'm going to try. So I hope you enjoy whatever the hell I make next.
Is a good boy who matters.